Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you listen in and learn about the value that Workday Prism Analytics has to offer your company. My name is Stephanie, and I will be your moderator for the webinar today. Before we get started, I wanted to run through a couple house rules. So everyone is on mute for the duration of the webinar. But the chat function is available. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and chat those over to us, and we'll make sure to answer them at the end of the presentation during the question and answer portion. If we do not get to your question, we will follow up as soon as possible after the webinar. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, so you can watch this on playback as well. It will be available tomorrow. So with that, I will hand it over to our presenter, Todd, to take it away. Todd, it is all yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. We're going to be talking about Prism Analytics today, and specifically shedding light on your dark data. So to introduce myself, my name is Todd Mashburn. I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a consultant with our reporting services division, and I'm also a Prism Analytics product lead for Workday. I've got about 3 years of Workday ecosystem experience and many moons of reporting and analytics in different fashions. But enough about me. I want to talk to you a little bit about collaborative solutions. We are a finance, HR, and student cloud transformation consultancy. And if you look at the infographic here, one that sticks out is the 800 plus Workday customers that we have supported, and the resulting customer satisfaction rating of 98%. So high customer satisfaction rating based on the transformation consultancy services we provide. I also want to point out the blue box there with the number 26 for HCM customer and number 3 finance. Not only are we a partner to Workday, but we are also a customer. So we practice what we preach in a way. This does give us a unique perspective on both sides of the spectrum. Gives us appreciation for what you all are doing day to day, and allows us some insight into some of the functionality from a personal perspective. The bottom row here shows some of our workplace awards, and we are very pleased with these. These are employee voted on, and as you can see, we have different categories for women, millennials, consultants, and professional services. So it's a very diverse group, obviously in our employees, but a diverse group that has been satisfied with the workplace, which in turn gives satisfied employees that help you all. So it helps with turnover, engagement, etc. So the agenda for today, I want to touch base on the analytics maturity model, since we are talking Prism Analytics, and then dark data, Prism value proposition, and with limited time, we're going to In case you missed it, agenda, we're looking at analytics maturity model, the dark data, Prism value proposition. We're going to go through a short use case application, and then we will end with audience questions and answers. So to start, we're looking at a basic analytics maturity model. As you can see on the left, we start with basic reporting. This is going to be your Excel files, your flat data files, text, data lists. And these are typically emailed reports stuck on an SFTP server, etc. As we move to the right, we have advanced reporting. This is more of a user-driven model. So user would have options for prompts. There might be some visualizations for charts and some alerts. As we move past that, we go into dashboards, which is more higher level focused reporting for a specific audience, executive reporting, managers, or HR scorecards. And then as we move on, we'll go to self-service analytics, where you're integrating data from different systems, preparing it, and discovering for the different uses, plus the security and governance. And then the end goal, mature, everybody kind of strives to get to predictive analytics to tell kind of what is going to happen as best we can perceive based on what's happened in the past. So let's talk about dark data. When you first hear dark data, you kind of think about, a dark closet or the basement. But Gartner, their IT glossary defines this term as information assets organizations collect, process, and store during regular business activities, but generally fail to use for other purposes. So it's basically we're collecting data every day. Everyone is. It piles upon piles of data, but we're just letting it sit there. We're not really using it to gain any insight. So, like I said, when you hear dark data, the perception is, your dusty file boxes in the basement, raw survey data. You're not sure what to do with. You've used it once when you collected it, and it just kind of sits. Support logs could be a piece of this. Customer support, employee support, or website traffic, which is very high volume, but can give some insight. Excuse me. The reality is dark data to me might be shining bright for somebody else on the team. One example is HR data, which finance cannot access via self-service. So they may need that for budget forecast, but they're relying on HR to kind of cleanse that data, remove any kind of personal identifiers, etc., and deliver it to them, which is essentially, it works, might not be efficient. Exit survey data in Workday. Sometimes Workday has available options to report on certain things. It's just having the knowledge to be able to bring those to light. And then a common is extended workforce population and cost, agency, temporaries, contingent workers, etc. Typically, some customers bring that into Workday, but a lot, depending on the function, payments, etc., are in a ancillary system. So why should I care about dark data? Like, Todd, you're telling me about dark data, but do I care? You should. I just want to highlight some of the risks associated with dark data. If you do not understand where your dark data is and do not take steps to identify it and ensure proper governance, you can risk the following. First is compliance. There's a lot more, I guess, pressing compliance regulatory matters for GDPR, certain countries, and just truly giving access to people that you may not know. Security, like mentioned, vulnerabilities. Typically this is less monitored. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And a lot of times you forget it's even there. So is it being reviewed as part of your data governance review? Who is the gatekeeper holding access to this data? And then competition. You've got lost advantage. Your competitors are actively gathering this information, and they might uncover a competitive advantage that you are not even aware of. It's a possibility. Then opportunity. It's kind of use it or lose it. If it's not timely and it sits there for a period of time, it'll become stale and really no longer usable, or the ability to utilize is gone. So Prism Analytics, the value proposition, how does it shed light on your dark data? So as you can see, you got your dark circles, which is dark data, kind of going into the funnel and then coming out bright and sunny. Prism allows you to ingest and blend external data with your Workday data, create new reportable sources of data. You can see full spectrum of workforce, financial, operational insights, all of this within Workday. On the right-hand side, just got some examples of certain things we have seen customers utilize and ingest into Prism. And then, of course, on the very bottom there, the dashboard, scorecards, and custom reports are your ultimate goal. So why bring it all in? The biggest value proposition of Prism is making those better business decisions with analytics. Allows you to plan, execute, and analyze. Typically, the system of records, system engagement, and system of intelligence is separate, but with Workday, it allows you to bring it all in and utilize that power of one. So common challenges, typically multiple systems. There could be updates in one system that's not represented in another system that data is flowing to. Manual processes, gathering some of these things, cleansing data to be distributed, etc., really bogs down your employees' time, so that can't really work on the things that push the business forward. And just a lack of insight. If you don't see it, you're not aware, and that can obviously cause problems in making those business decisions. So what makes Prism Analytics unique? Distribution, easily distributed to any worker. And this allows you also to secure the data based on that worker and what information goes there. Touching base on security, organizations change, and those security reflects those changes immediately. You're not having to update multiple systems with security updates. You're just basically updating one and it rolls downhill, I guess. And then your experience, your insights, decisions, and actions in one system. So how does it work? Data management workflow for Prism. Basically, you create your data sets. You're going to ingest your data external and within Workday into a data catalog and create data sets. You would cleanse and transform the data, join or blend it. Different systems typically have different formats, different wording, etc. Step 2 of data management is your security. So it has a flexible security application. You can use your Workday delivered security domains and apply it just like the rest of your Workday user interface, or you can apply custom security configurations, row, field, or cell level security, so you can kind of cherry pick which fields you want to secure differently. Third is publish. You publish your Prism data source. Data is secured appropriately compared to what you applied. And then your data source is exposed for consumption. Fourth is analyze. You can create dashboards, reports, just like any other Workday functionality, but you also have discovery boards, which is more of a drag and drop chart visualization. And then you have your actual insights in Workday with your external data blended. Excuse me. So for the overall workflow, as you can see up top, we've got the external data. And at the bottom, we have our HCM and financial management data in Workday. So we're going to ingest that into this. You can see the orange rectangle in the middle is basically your Prism functionality. Once you ingest, you can blend that data together, transform it, format, logic, etc., to make your Prism data source. Once that Prism data source is published, that's when you expose that data to your discovery boards for quick analysis or custom reports for flat detail or charts. So the features of Prism, data integration. So you have the ability to integrate your data via manual upload, API integration, SFTP server, etc. You got data preparation. You can bring those data points in, change the format, blend it, apply any logic you need to transform. Then you have your data governance where you can apply the security basically how you wish. And then the end result is your reports and dashboards and data discovery. And this is a picture of a data discovery board. And as you can see, you have your visualizations. On the right-hand side, you have your filters. So it's really interactive to the end user to consume in really any fashion. They can creatively come up with. Sorry. So how it happens when you ingest your raw source data, basically creating a base data set. This data set's created from upload or a file on an SFTP or custom report within Workday, where you can apply the integration technology of API. You cannot bring in additional pipelines into the data set, but I'll show you in a minute how you can branch off of these. And in a base data set, it's more of your raw data. So you can update field names and types, but you don't necessarily do transformations here. So our transformations really come from our derived data set. So we kind of keep our base data set as your baseline. That's your raw data, your source data for data quality, etc. It remains essentially unchanged. And the derived data set is where we're going to create the transformations, and we're going to bring that information from the base data set and put it in a pipeline to really transform it. You can select different data sets to import. Allows for additional pipelines for multi-data set transformations. So you can filter, join, group by if you have more granular detail that you need to roll up by quarter, by company, region, etc. And then you can also update the field name and field type in this derived data set as well. So for data governance, you can govern any data with individual permissions, but I think the key here is that it changes with your organization. Updating this is as simple as clicking a button to update security and changing where it's secured. So it rolls down the pipeline and allows you to have some agility in changing those permissions based on how your organization has changed. You can specify default security, apply to all fields, or you can cherry pick different fields within to secure differently for HIPAA, social, PI information. So gaining some efficiency, you can automate refresh of these data sets if it's a ongoing compilation of data. So you can run integrations and publish on a schedule based on different factors, payroll end date, payroll close. It can be based daily, weekly, or monthly on any object in Workday. And the key factor here is the reports, scorecards, and dashboards. These are indexed in Prism, so it gives you the ability to populate the reports much faster than the user interface. And what that allows you to do is access these with detail on any device via dashboards, scorecards, or reports. So your mobile phone or iPad. So a lot more flexibility. Next, we're going to talk about common use cases. Legacy history is probably the most common. I think it's natural if you are changing to Workday from a prior system. I think this is usually the top of mind for everyone, but it does give you some value because when information changes in one system, it may not reflect those changes made in another. So it is nice to have that brought into Workday to make sure you do have the most up-to-date data points. Second is the extended ecosystem we talked about earlier. You got your contingent worker, agency temps, the costs and expense associated with those. Typically, those are kind of desolate systems, but bringing those in gives you a holistic view of your resources and the trends. Operational insights, depending on if you do have finance in Workday, just bringing in those revenues, expenses, sales opportunity pipelines, and then those customer employee request logs. And then security, Workday security is good. Sometimes it's too good. It does what is there to do. Manager can see their own view of things, but that does limit it to their own view and sometimes limits what they can see and how they're performing compared to their peers. Second is just finance may not have a role in Workday to secure the data for them to consume, so they are having to wait on that data and not being able to act as quickly, I guess you could say. So today, wanted to go through limited time, just a financial services use case we saw not too long ago. The challenge is the customer had a need to allow divisional managers to view peer metrics. Like I said, Workday security is good, and sometimes it's too restrictive. And sometimes it's hard to unravel what you have in security in Workday once it's in place, because you do not know, or there's a fear of impact in other areas. Then we also needed to incorporate some external data, learning, and survey results. So what we did, we created 2 published Prism data sources, and we secured them separately. We took 2 Workday reports and 4 external data sources to enhance some period dimensions. And once again, those data sets were secured differently. We developed custom reports, 1 drillable and 1 non-drillable for those peer metrics. which allowed for display of aggregated info on the dashboard. And we linked it to a detailed report that was constrained to allow for drill downs, and created and deployed that new dashboard. And we also provided additional reports to display external learning and survey results. So basically, with Workday Security, you can see your own group and you can see your employees as a manager, but you really don't know what that means. How are you performing based on your peers? And without any insight into your peer data, which it seems like a no-brainer, hey, I just want to see aggregate data for the company as a whole or for my division as a whole, but the Workday Security is constrained to keep you kind of in your lane. And this provided a way to easily not really unravel all the security, and a lot of the manager security is Workday delivered. This just gave an easy way. Everybody could sleep at night because they did not give away security they did not mean to, etc. And we're specifically setting those security domains to allow for that without allowing additional drill down personal information. So how we did that, this is kind of a lineage for the solution. On the left-hand side, you'll see our source data here in red. To the right of it is all of our base data sets. That's our raw data that we brought in. And then within the transformation, all these DDSs are our derived data sets, where we could kind of transform and blend that data. And then ultimately, we had two data sources. We had one for HCM that was unconstrained, and the bottom there that was constrained. So the non-drillable unconstrained reports and the drillable constrained reports both kind of blend in to one dashboard. So lastly, what's your use case? I think it's always good to start with a question. What are you trying to accomplish? There's no reason to put all of your data in Prism. In my opinion, if you do not have a use case to use that data, we want to make the best use of everyone's time, but it is always good to start with the end result in mind. One, to make sure you're designing it the way you're envisioning the outcome. And then also to make sure you're grabbing all the data elements you need to bring into Workday to accomplish that goal. And where is this data located? If it's in the dusty file boxes in the basement, we're probably going to leave it there, just to be honest. But if it's readily accessible, it may not be accessed often, etc., might as well grab it. And if it is from a kind of a live system, identifying how often it'll change, if any. And then, data quality, etc. Is it clean? Is it prepared for transformation? And then you have to be kind of strategic on what fields will be used to join data. You need to understand what your primary keys are for each data source. So best practices, develop a well-defined use case for initial deployment. I think this helps you cement your knowledge of Prism, and it gets one use case kind of under your belt to build upon. The remaining, you want to prioritize use cases based on complexity and delivery date. And then identify your key stakeholders and get an understanding of their needs. A lot of times I think I understand people's needs until I talk to them, and I quickly realize that they have a different approach. Establish your procedures and standards for publishing those data sets. how often is that data changing, and is your publish schedule, does that align with how often it changes, or we're giving people the most up-to-date information? Develop your internal expertise to start to build momentum on other use cases or expanding on your current. Embrace the power of one, having it all there in Workday, in Prism, to be able to really take action on the insights that it's giving you. Then develop a roadmap for future use cases. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie for questions at this point.
Great, thank you so much, Todd. Let's take a look. Looks like there are a bunch of folks listening in, so that's great.
I think I am.
Let's see, first question we have, what is the most common use case identified when implementing Prism Analytics?
Sorry, could you say that one more time, Stephanie?
Yeah.
My earpiece keeps on cutting out.
No problem. What is the most common use case identified when implementing Prism Analytics?
I think what I've seen, at least, is I think it's natural to migrate your legacy system data. I guess the positive or the value add for that is your payroll department, for instance. If you move payroll history for the last 5 to 7 years, whatever your regulatory restraints are, it allows them to not have to migrate to ADP or another system, log in, make sure they know their login, pull out the notebook out of their desk. But you gain some efficiencies. We've taken payroll history, high level and very granular, and placed those on reports that were ultimately placed on the worker profile. So if a ex-employee calls to inquire about things as they're talking to them, they can pull up their worker profile and, in essence, pull up their job history, payroll history, etc. So I think that's the most natural use case that most people implement initially.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Next question that came in. How does Prism Analytics add value when compared to other reporting tools outside of Workday?
Okay, good question. I mean, there are comparable tools out there. Prism Analytics is not a relational database, and I think some of the functions within Prism make people kind of associate it that way. But I think value can be measured a couple different ways. And I think security would probably be one of the top that comes to mind. Typically, other reporting tools, maybe data warehouse, et cetera, depending on who is controlling access or security. Sometimes it's IT, which can be the appropriate party in some cases, and in some cases it's not. So depending on the company process, there's more visibility within Workday to audit, keep tabs on, etc. I think efficiency is another. You're already in Workday doing your HR or finance day-to-day activities. You might as well bring the same functionality with a little extra into one system and gain those economies of scale where your employees are not having to navigate to different systems, export things to Excel, email them out, etc. And instead delivering them basically where the employees are working day to day anyway.
Great. Let's see, one more question, looks like, last question here. Do you suggest loading all legacy history into Prism Analytics from a system that is sunsetting?
So this is a common question that we get. And in my opinion, I would say no. I think it is natural to bring all of your system data over a legacy system, especially if you're losing it, if it's sunsetting. And I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying I suggest not. And the only reason I say that is I think you should have a defined use case before you bring those data points in. One, are you going to use it? And if you are in the future, by all means do that. But loading it for the sake of loading it, there are some storage limitations based on your contract. But I feel like you need a defined use case or a defined future use case to give you kind of an idea of how you're going to use that data before you bring it in. But like I said, if it's a future defined use case, or if you're bringing in additional complementary data points, I would say bring those in, but not just to do.
Great, thank you so much, Todd. Very thorough answer there. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope everyone found value in this webinar, and we look forward to having you join us again. If there were any questions that we missed or that you thought of at a later time, please reach out and we'll be sure to follow up with you after this webinar. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.